everybody, and welcome to another episode of 6 Degrees of Associations. We are excited to be back in studio on location. We had a week off there last week, so we are excited to bring Anikia Brown today. Lucas, welcome back from San Diego and some traveling for work. And Anikia, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. So glad to.
Of course. Well, we thank Natasha Thea for recommending you. And Anikia, so you hold a marketing and communications manager role at the National League for Nursing. But what we really found out in some of our pre-conversations is that, well, you have a very full plate and you have leveraged your experience that you've built in your career to then found a local chapter of an association of your own that relates to your particular role. So we would love to just kind of kick the conversation off on that journey, because that's just a really unique and cool way of you to leverage your skills and talents to further help the industry that you're already in. So would you share that with us a little bit?
Absolutely. Thank you for that. In 2019, I joined the Association for Women in Communications, and it was after I graduated with my master's in PR. And so I have been a part of marketing associations, and so I wanted to expand that and marry the two, marketing and comms. And so I found AWC, and then when I found AWC, I noticed that they had chapters, but they didn't have a DC chapter. And me being a part of a lot of professional associations, I know the value in being able to connect locally with professionals who are like-minded and who share the same value and passions as you. And so I just took it upon myself to see, how we could have a chapter in the DC area. And so in talking with their board and kind of making my case, it was a journey. To be short, it was a journey, and it was really like building a business. I had to do several things in order to charter the chapter, including having members. So it started out with me. And to charter, we had to have 8 members. We had to do a lot of tax documentation. We had to do a lot of filings for legal reasons, things that I had no idea or no clue what to do. But again, I was very determined to start this chapter. And so after I got a lot of the paperwork done, it was really down to me being my own marketing and membership team of one, and to start recruiting members. And so what I originally did was I found AWC members who were actually in the area, but who again weren't a part of a chapter. So that was my easiest kind of low-hanging fruit to message them and to communicate to them, to say, hey, I'm starting this chapter. I would love for you to be a part of this journey. And then for them, of course, because they were already members, one of the big values in that was that they didn't have to pay. They literally just had to join. Ooh, my earring, right. Excuse me. But
it happens to the best of us.
But so doing that, it was still kind of hard, because I think traditionally those members weren't engaged with AWC on a national level. So it was very hard. So the next step that I took was to recruit some of my colleagues who were in the field within the association space. And so by doing that, I met them at Next Gen Summit, ASCE's Next Gen Summit. And so from building, excuse me, this is one of the things you deal with in a virtual environment.
Okay.
My fur baby is going off, probably an Amazon package. Okay. Yeah. But I met some wonderful colleagues in my association's Next Gen Association Summit. And from there, we formed a bond. And, the power of networking is really building a community. And I'm very grateful for them, because I shared this vision with them and they were on board with me, and they became a part of AWC chapter. the DC chapter. And then from there, they helped me to recruit more members. And so they recruited their colleagues that were within the communication space. And then it turned from 1 to 8 members. And so now we had enough members to charter. And then once we chartered, COVID hit literally like 3 weeks later.
Oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. So I had not had the timeline in my head exactly that you had started this before COVID.
Just before.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it took a year to get us charted, from the paperwork to the recruitment. And so once we had everything done and we actually officially charted, COVID hit.
Oh gosh.
We charted February 25th, and then the shutdown happened right shortly afterwards. And so now our goals for our chapter were disrupted, as everyone across the world,
Sure.
right? We had no idea what to do. We didn't know how to further engage with our then 8 members.
Sure.
And so, to be honest, it was kind of like, well, what do we do from here?
Right.
And, as you mentioned before, I work at the National League for Nursing. And so things really picked up for us during that time, because now we had to help these nurse educators transition virtually and teaching nurses who actually graduated earlier, just so they can help go out and battle and combat the pandemic. So it was definitely a lot going on for me, but the beauty of it was I was able to use the lessons learned and practices that we developed and that we, really modeled from other organizations who kind of was ahead of the curve and already had like virtual learning environments and things in place. I was able to use that and apply it to AWC. And so as we continue to engage with our members at the NLN, I started using some of that messaging framework to engage with our AWC members. So it was really about recrafting our messaging to now, talk about how we are all in this together, and we are all, in this virtual space learning new things, but we are all a part of the same community. And so I think at that point, in a time where everyone felt so disconnected because we couldn't be together, it was really important to talk about the power of, being away, but being together, right? And so I think that was really our aim for AWC, is letting them know that, we are building this community for them where, you're not in this alone. We're here for you, whether it be personal, whether it be professional growth in your field. We're here for you to provide that support and that resources. And I think through that, not only were we able to connect with those 8 members, but through those 8 members, we were able to recruit more members. And over the time, we
talked about some good growth.
Yeah. And over the time, we started doing small things like virtual happy hours. We started doing things we opened up a AWC Cafe, which was like a virtual, on Wednesdays, it was like a Wellness Wednesday event where literally for like an hour, you can just pop into the cafe in the morning with your coffee or your tea and just chat.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Community, whether it's work related, professional related, it was a venting session. We just wanted to build a way for our community to connect, and just implementing little things like that. We continue to see a little bit of growth, because we really didn't have, and still don't have, an abundance of resources to do a full blown out membership marketing campaign. So at that point, it was really about our messaging and empathy and, the humanity, allowing people to really see themselves and be relatable to help build that connection. And so now, 2 years fast forward, we have about 50 members. So we grew from 1 to 8 to 50 in about 2 years.
I think anybody would take that growth. Now that you've had some time to kind of reflect, Anita, Anikia, you've talked to a lot of members pretty regularly, it seems. You're in constant communication. If you're reflecting back on that period, do you think it's more the how you did it, the what you did, or really the why? Like if you had to point to one of those that created the biggest impact and resulted in all that growth, is it, is it from your marketing perspective and communications perspective, was it the content you were pushing out? Was it the frequency, or was it just the mission itself? Or what do you think led to all that?
I think it was the why. I think it was the mission. Because as I mentioned before, when we first started, we had no idea, what to do. Because we were in the pandemic, and everyone has so much going on at that time. I honestly felt as though this is just something extra that people won't even really care about because there's just so much going on in the world. But I think because of that reason is why we were able to be successful, because we lended ourselves as a safe space for these communication professionals. So I think in that moment, it really wasn't about, attend this webinar, or it wasn't transactional, right?
Yeah.
It was more transformational. It was more to inspire and to empower and to encourage our members and the audience. And so I think the why and the mission of why we began AWC is really what helped to connect and build our membership. Yeah.
You mentioned it's like running a business. It's 100% like running a business, right? And then Simon Sinek wrote the book, Starts With Why, is you have to have something that will attract people. I think most really successful businesses, well, all businesses start out as small businesses, for what it's worth. And then they're championed by something that people are drawn to, which is the why. And then sometimes you just have to figure out all the other stuff. You don't have to know how to do all the paperwork up front. You don't have to know how you're going to get from M to Z, but you do know how to get from A to B and then B to C. And so I think for me, I keep thinking about larger associations, and Aaron and I have had a lot of conversations with execs and other vendors to the industry where some of this entrepreneurial spirit is missing, right? I think about, how do we translate some of your passion and your go-gettedness of the entrepreneurial spirit into a larger association who maybe lost some of the spark, right? And they're sort of into, now we've built a big machine and just let the machine go, instead of, man, really bringing that passion back and going and doing something and leaning harder into your why. And I mean, my question, I guess, would come to, are there things within the larger organizations, because you've been part of AARP, it's pretty big, yes. 34 million members. I think they have over 27 million households. How can we take some of these things that you've learned and gone through now personally and translate them to a big national association, for example, and sort of things where some of that, again, just may have sort of faded?
Yeah, I think, again, as I mentioned before, it's really about, one, being authentic, right? And I think that with, for a lot of organizations, whether it's an association or a big corporation, a lot of times I think that, when you get big or you grow to a certain level, you kind of, like you say, you kind of forget about the why, you kind of forget about the mission. And it's more about those transactional, relationships. And for me, it's like, we have to always remember to continue to humanize our brand, right? And remember that behind someone's, wanting to purchase something, or you want someone to participate in something, that there's always another way to connect to them, other than being transactional. And I think that really being authentic in, your mission, and always driving your work back to it, to remind not only, the organization, but its audience as well, that, we're here for a reason, and our reason is to help you succeed. So how to do that? We need your help, right? We need your help. We need your feedback. We want to hear your stories. We want to know, what are your pain points? We want to know, what are you going through, and how can we create solutions for you? Versus thinking, oh, well, this has worked for us in the past, so we know what our audience wants, right? And I think that sometimes it's really about building those individual and unique relationships with your audience, which means you have to understand your audience and know who they are, right? It's no longer a one size fit all model. So, you know, you have, for instance, the National League for Nursing, we have nurse educators who have been in the nursing profession for about 20 years, but then we also have nurse educators who literally went to school and never went into like healthcare settings because they wanted to just be a nurse educator. And so you have like from the novice to the expert, and you have to know how to talk to them, how to engage with them differently and uniquely. And I think, again, really expressing that, you know, you are here for their support, right? And that we actually need you, right? Versus vice versa, right? A lot of times, a lot of organizations think, well, members need us, you know, we are their resource, or we can help them grow, but it's actually the reverse, to be honest.
I mean, because how else would you be able to accommodate your audience, to your point, unless you're taking the time to understand what your audience wants and needs from you? I think that, you know, unfortunately, we have to probably wrap up here because we could talk to you for a long time about all of this. And as we were talking in the pre-call, there's like drinking from the Anikia fire hose, is that what you said, Lucas? I loved it because your passion is so clear. I would say also clearly an unflappable communicator, because right through dog barking and everything, you just kept going.
Right
so
on
I
through.
think, right on through. And I love it. And I think that the takeaway that I'm sort of walking away with, and I hope our audience walks away with, is this idea that, you know, marketing, a lot of people see it as fluff. People see it as like, oh, I'm just trying to build a persona for our association, for our members, whatnot. But really, when you're thinking about communications, how do you communicate, commune with your members, and through that authenticity and why, it really leads to more fruitful interactions and relationships. So I really applaud you for taking that energy that you had and the skill sets that you had, and again, being able to transfer that into further helping association executives and communicators and so forth. So really wonderful to hear from you. And I hope that we get a chance to talk to you again about, because we certainly feel like we could go on a whole other tangent about how did you get into online learning around a profession that is so requiring in-person training. So let's make sure we make a comeback reel here and have you come back. But before we say goodbye though, Anikia, we always ask at the end of our shows who you might think our audience could benefit from. So do you have a recommendation for us for someone we should talk to?
Yeah, so I think Lauren Harley, now Lauren Collins, she was recently married, will be a great young woman to talk to. She actually helped me champion AWC. She is our program chair. And so I think that, you know, her journey is very unique and inspiring because she came from the association management space. And so she kind of has, you know, two different lenses on how to help, you know, grow association space and really champion association professionals. So Lauren Carlin will be an additional and great individual to interview.
Awesome. Look forward to it. Lucas, we've got our work cut out for us.
I think as a final thought, I have this lingering question, comment in my brain about, you know, reinforcing this idea that the why changes. And that, you know, if you're an established association and you've not revisited your why, it's probably time. Folks that joined your association 20 years ago maybe joined for a different reason, and you're not speaking to sort of the next generation of membership, or vice versa. You're speaking too much to the next gen and forgetting about. So you have sort of a spectrum there in which you need to communicate your why, but keep thinking about it, keep revisiting. Thank you, Anikia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.